Well, 2 months ago, as the coronavirus was becoming more and more of a crisis in this country, I put together 7 Ps to help us think about how to respond during this time. And the first P is the obvious one. It's prayer. That passage in 1 Peter that we started our whole service with. Cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. When we are concerned, when we are anxious because we're not prioritizing the right thing, when we're anxious because we're worried that our needs won't be met by God, when we're anxious because we don't remember how much we're valued by God, then we need to come to God in prayer. And we need to come in the way that God calls us to pray. And going back to a sermon of a couple of weeks ago, and back to chapter 6, verses 9 to 11, we've got the Lord's Prayer. Jesus shows us how to pray. And he says, first of all, pray, our Father in heaven. Remember that God is your Father, that you're valued by him as a child of God's. Doesn't that in itself help with our anxiety? And pray your kingdom come. In other words, put God's priorities first. That's one of the first things you pray before you worry about your needs. That's seeking God's kingdom first. And then pray, give us today our daily bread. Trust that God will provide your needs daily. He will give to you all these other things when you seek first his kingdom. Prayer is the number one priority, the number one response to anxiety. And the Bible says in a couple of places, when you're anxious or worried, pray. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. I remember 2 months ago when the crisis in this country was becoming more obvious. Ireland had just announced the beginning of their lockdown, and they were going to close schools, and that big gatherings would be banned. And I realised that quite soon it was likely that churches would be closed, that the schools would be closed, and just beginning to reflect on what all that meant with me. And I remember going to a meeting and feeling really stressed about all this, and even a little bit of heart palpitations going on. And the next morning I decided not to go to another meeting that I was meant to go to, but instead to spend some time in prayer. As I prayed about it all, God gave me a much greater sense of peace about the whole situation. And it's as I prayed about those things that these 7 Ps came to mind, I think given by God as a way of helping to work out how to work through this crisis. I can't say that I haven't been anxious at times since, but that moment of prayer, that moment of turning to God was so crucial in overcoming the anxiety that I was feeling at that time. And so if you're struggling with anxiety now, then the oxygen you need to stop that anxiety overwhelming you is prayer. Focus afresh on God. Seek his kingdom as you pray, and know that he will provide your daily needs.